2 episodes within the span of a week. That's how you know it's back. And it's prime content season. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome without much further ado. And I'm not going to waste too much time on my usual, I'm creating new words, on my usual preamble here at the beginning of the episodes. I myself am the Iceman here with my compatriots of chaos on your favorite NFL podcast that has been sweeping the ranks on YouTube for quite a while now. The Sports Agents of Chaos podcast, as you could tell, we're recording once again for the second time in less than a week because it's serious business, as you can see by the title, 2026 NFL Mock Draft Part 1, Round 1. We're going to have a good time. And joining me on this one, first time ever we're doing a mock draft in 2 parts. We assume it'll be 2 parts. Joining me, my compatriots of chaos, like I mentioned, the Podfather, who we have been doubling up on these episodes for a good couple of weeks now. Podfather, how are we doing?
I'm tired.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard work, pushing out the content when certain champions want to take some time off. And speaking of that, no, I kid. Our champion has returned for the first time this season. I guess he used Justin, of the things I figured you use your championship privilege for, I did not have taking the Podfather's tradition of missing the start of a new season of episodes on top of it. But I actually commend you. Well done on that, sir. Well done on that. Our champion is returned.
Where as a champion, I have certain obligations and responsibilities. Everyone wants a piece of, success. So I gotta make appearances other places, shake some hands, kiss some babies, and we'll see. I'm hoping it doesn't happen too much more throughout the season, but we'll see. I'm an important guy now.
I was going to say, the champ has been dragged out statewide, ladies and gentlemen. Illinois, California. It's like Captain America's tour that he did in the first Avenger movie. So, we'll see where else that Justin is going to be dragged out to over the course of the spring and the summer here. But no, good to have you back, brother. We always miss you. The episodes just aren't complete when it's not the 3 of us in it. But it's going to be complete for at least 2 in a row because we have the mock draft. And ladies and gentlemen, we truly are not going to waste too much time. We're going to share the screen here momentarily, and we're going to go back to an old friend. As for the first time in a couple of years, we'll be doing a PFF mock draft on this one. So, sorry. Not literally, I love mock draft database, but I'm not really trying to download too many extra programs on the new laptop right now to ruin anything, and I can't really afford all the ads that they're going to put. So, them's the breaks. But welcome back, PFF, and welcome, boys, to the. I mean, it's slated for 3 rounds of the program, just so it doesn't auto-end after our last selection. But it is, as the title says, it's only going to be part 1, round 1 in this one tonight. In theory, 32 picks are going to be made here, guys. But we made a decision amongst the 3 of us. Podfather, would you like to be the arbiter and explain to the people why this will be the most anticlimactic first pick in mock draft history?
Because there's one quarterback likely that'll be taken in the first round of this NFL draft, and it's one quarterback that'll be taken by the number 1 team in the NFL draft. Without too much consternation and confusion and the like, it's been mocked pretty much to everybody under the sun that Fernando Mendoza will go number 1 to the Raiders. So, I mean, what are we even doing at this point? It is what it is.
Yeah, slam dunk selection. And don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, when we get to rounds 2 and 3, we'll actually consider more parts for the Raiders picks as Justin has the Raiders in this. So it make his life easy, but in return, he also gets his precious New York Jets.
It feels more like a punishment, to be honest.
I was going to say, now in theory, Justin could have also, done something really crazy and gone with somebody else other than Mendoza, but I feel like even Justin's keenly aware that Mendoza is the number 1 consensus pick. So,
yeah, I you know what? Part of me just didn't see Justin going with a random defensive end for the Raiders at 1.
True, accurate assessment there. But now
they almost traded Crosby. If they would have traded Crosby, I totally would have gone someone else, but.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, there would have been a need if I mean, to be fair, he probably still is going to get traded, but it is funny to consider if there was an alternate reality where it's just like, hey, you know what? Let's not pick Mendoza first overall. You know who we really need to give quarterback starts in this season? Aiden O'Connell is going to learn under Kirk Cousins. Not Mendoza. Aiden O'Connell is going to be the next franchise quarterback of this team.
Yeah, for sure. Gotta love Aiden O'Connell.
So we have our fun, but I feel like we'd be a little bit dishonest if we didn't pick Mendoza first overall.
Yeah,
this go around. There was a semi-feasible chance last year that the Titans could have swerved off of Cam Ward.
What they should have, obviously. I tell you,
for his sake more than anything.
Aside from the 1 year that we had to go chalk and I had to pick Caleb Williams through gritted teeth, we have correctly picked a player that has been better than the number 1 overall pick 3 of the 4 mock drafts we've done so far in our tenure. So
it's genuinely true. So again, we literally just started, so I can reset this whole shebang right now. But do we feel like trying to make an argument as to picking someone other than Mendoza to the Raiders here, or do we just keep it moving? Now, granted, if the Raiders don't pick him, we know that who Justin would pick at 2nd overall, not Mendoza, obviously.
Now Ty Simpson's still out there for him, because Alabama quarterbacks do so well at first-round picks. You know this.
Yeah.
No, Mendoza is going to be the number 1, and there's really no. I don't know if there is a best consensus player in this year's draft. Like in the years past, we've had guys like Abdul Carter or Aiden Hutchinson, but you'd be foolish not to pick Mendoza in this spot. So we're just going to keep it and move on, I suppose.
Yes, exactly. So Justin, with not wasting any more time, your New York Jets have the number 2 overall pick. You have them for the mock. And we have a nice Google sheet, ladies and gentlemen, in the background here to make sure that we all that the 3 of us keep tabs and keep track of this at all times. So Justin is selecting number 2 overall here with the New York Jets in mind, followed by the Podfather number 3, myself at number 4 with the Titans, and they keep moving from there. So without much further ado, Justin, your deliberation. Who do you think, / if in your power here, the Jets should be selecting with number 2?
I think it's going to be very straightforward. The 2nd pick is not as exciting as the 1st pick. It's the exact same way as we know who it's going to be. It's just, or who it's likely going to be, but I'll just get paid a little bit less because he went number 2. I think it's going to be Arvell Reese. Just the way they designed their team.
Okay.
They need a linebacker. As much as we love Demario Davis coming back, they're going to need a guy for the future, and that seems to be the way it's going to go. Outside of Sauce, I can't remember the last time they picked a defensive player that had real impact long term, even though I guess you could even say Sauce wasn't a long-term impact player considering he only played here 3-4 years. So yeah, let's hope it goes better than the last few defensive linebackers they picked in the 1st round.
Indeed, and a lot of talent coming out of the Big Ten and Ohio State specifically, in this 1st round, like all of the mock drafts as they should. It's a lot of Ohio State kids being projected to go very high here, all things considered. And really the question ultimately was going to be, is it Arvell Reese or Sonny Hayes, or Sonny Styles, excuse me. Sonny Hayes, F1 in the mind already with the F1 movie. Justin, before we move on to Rick here with 3rd overall, do you buy not, and this does not mean that you don't think he would be this good if he were drafted this high up, but in terms of people trying to make the debate of it should be Reese at number 2 to the Jets or should it be Styles or someone else, what do you think? What makes it, at least for you, clear that it should be Arvell Reese 2nd overall?
I just think he's the best defensive player in the draft. He's got a good floor and the highest ceiling out of anyone. Some of these guys might be a little bit more developed, but realistically, I mean, this is the big, strong, athletic player. He's got the intangibles. He seems like the guy to me.
I don't blame you. I don't disagree either. I've just seen the different mocks, different conversations, different podcasts, and all the like. So without further ado, let's keep it moving. Podfather. Interesting situation here for the Arizona Cardinals. They cut Kyler Murray. So the work that has been done the last couple of years to try to sort of build up a roster for him, I mean, I wouldn't say it's going to waste because you could just get the next quarterback maybe in the 2nd, 3rd round of this draft, maybe in next year's draft. With Paris Johnson on that offensive line from a couple of years ago, you're hoping that Marvin Harrison Jr. has a good breakout 3rd season, or else that pick is really not going to look good. So with that being said, obviously right, Justin? So obviously it's not going to be a quarterback here at number 3. Where has your mind been at, Rick, with the Arizona Cardinals here at the 3rd selection?
Well, Monty Ossenfort has to make a very big decision here as the general manager of this team. Obviously, Mike LaFleur, the brand new head coach over there, they're going to want to pound offense, and they're going to need to find a new cornerstone somewhere. Now, what's interesting is that last year with Ossenfort as the GM, they went with a bit of a project in the 1st round. They had the number 16 overall pick and took a guy who was very well rated out of the combine and out of the draft, and Walter Nolan. But it did not turn into a strong player for them in this first season. Only 11 tackles and 2 sacks in his rookie season. So not somebody that, they don't want to get a project over there. And as good as David Bailey is, that's kind of what he is that he's a bit of a project. So I think the Cardinals will do well to kind of stay away from that sort of thing. I think the slam dunk pick here for them is to just get better on that O-line because, again, one of the big things that we talk about is that if you have a veteran offensive line or an offensive line that has seasons under their belt for a new quarterback coming in, it's going to be even better for them. And so I think with that in mind, they're going to go to the U and they're going to take Francis Maioga, the Samoan offensive lineman, who was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, a day one starter for the Hurricanes, and somebody who just lives and breathes that starting offensive tackle position. He's going to be that big guy, that bookend tackle with Paris Johnson Jr. on the left side. He'll be on that right-hand side. 6'6", 335. He's mean. He plays physical. And that's what you need to open up these running lanes and also give your quarterbacks, whether it's Brissett or whether it's Gardner Minshew, more time to throw the ball in the pocket here. So it's not a flashy pick. I would think that there might be some clamoring for a key set piece player in this aspect, but you have to go with the guys that you need to go with, and in this case, it is Maioga from Miami going here.
That's a really good pick. I do like that pick. I was hoping that he would maybe fall an extra pick or two for one of my teams here coming up later in the top 10, but I don't blame the selection there right now. And in a situation like this, like you're talking about, where you do kind of go with a guy last year who maybe was a little bit more raw when you were in the middle of the first round, getting a more surefire product makes sense. And you can even make this argument, as I eyeball the top 10 there, once you get to Kansas City, right? Like when you're Kansas City, who knows when the next time you're going to pick this high up in the Mahomes era happens again. Like you want to pick a surefire guy. You don't want to pick a project.
Correct.
The guy, obviously, all first round picks, all picks overall in a draft, first round or seventh round, have to get better, have to develop, have to learn new things and develop different things. But when you pick day one, you pick this high up, you want a surefire guy, and you just picked a guy who could be a potential staple of an offensive line. Literally, you can argue half the teams in the top 10 of this draft even would have loved to have taken him, quarterback notwithstanding in some of those situations. So,
yeah, and I feel like the Cardinals are also going to be a team that's going to swing for a quarterback a little bit later on. If there was a second quarterback or a third quarterback that was going to go in this draft, I could have seen this being a 1-2-3 quarterback run, but there's just not that. So go with the safe pick, but go with the pick that's going to turn your team around on that right side of the offensive line.
Yep, 100%. All right, fourth overall pick here. I have the Tennessee Titans. Very interesting selection. Very interesting selection here when it comes to the Titans. They did a lot, as we went over in the free agency 2 episodes back. This is a team that did a good amount of moves, to say the very least, and for a lot of people, whelmed is the way to describe it. But they did do a lot. They added Wan'Dale Robinson offensively as like another weapon next to Calvin Ridley with Tony Pollard. So not to say that, I mean, one of the first names that I think of when it comes to them in this situation, I'm not saying this is my pick, but just as like for argument's sake, like Carnell Tate being the first wide receiver off of a lot of mocks and a lot of podcasts I've seen. If you feel that you can get the guy who, if Cam Ward is your franchise guy, if he is your definitive player going forward that you are going to build your team around, then do you take this risk a la what the Bengals did with Jamar Chase many years back, and pick him, pair him with Joe Burrow, and there's your combo that no matter what the situation is, they can make magic happen when they're on the field together. Of course, they need to actually be on the field together, which is kind of the issue Cincinnati's been running into. Spoiler alert. So I ultimately not going to pick Carnell Tate because it's tempting, but I think as I was looking at it and doing the research, boys, I feel like receiver is like decently deep in this draft. I'm not saying like necessarily like I'm not going to say like the offensive rookie of the year is going to come out in the second or third round, but would any of us really be surprised if one of these early day two receivers end up going and doing something for a franchise? So I'm not going to go wide receiver here for the Titans. I'm actually, and the offensive line is a bit tricky in this draft because I think there's some really good offensive linemen, but justifying another one to go here at number 4, Rick kind of took like the main guy I was focusing on there in Mao. Yeah. So what I'm actually going to do, a lot of the choices have been made on the defensive side of things. The Titans, in terms of their free agency stuff, they hired a defensive oriented head coach. A lot of the additions have been along the front 4. Let's add a potential leader who could do long-term things in the middle of that of that defense, right? Your front 4, you made a lot of choices. their defensive backs, no one necessarily this high up. So let's go right in the middle and let's pick the other guy out of Ohio State that people have high hopes for. Let's go with Sonny Styles at the 4th overall pick. And there's reasons that he's being brought up there, and all the conversations potentially go really high up in this draft because he is that dude. He is the top premier linebacker of this draft class and can really be an anchor in the middle of a team that I think, on paper, there's some decent guys who can get to the quarterback. So that he doesn't necessarily need to come in and do that right away. He just has to play the middle and be a rock in the middle of that defense. And I think he can do that, especially when it comes to attacking the rush. He's fantastic in terms of using his technique and the play recognition, which is good still. Has to develop, but good play recognition to help when it comes to stopping the run. So I think Sonny Styles will be able to be a key cog in the middle of that defense for the Titans this season as they try to be respectable. Speaking of which, let's go back to Rick. Giants, 5th overall.
Whew. Well, this is where it gets interesting because John Harbaugh's got a very interesting situation with his team going into this year. He did just say, that the offensive line is an area of concern. That being said, they did kind of shore that up in free agency by adding guys like Olubanor, and even though he was re-signed, giving Evan Neal a shot in the interior might be your best bet here to kind of roll off of that. But that's kind of why I go away from Spencer Fano and Monroe Freeling there. They could be good options for them on the offensive line, but the offensive line doesn't really sing what the Giants are looking for here. Jurg, you and I spoke about this earlier this week when it came to grading the Giants on free agency. Mm-hmm. And the big thing that I said was with all the moves that they made on the defense, getting rid of Bobby Okereke, bringing in Tremaine Edmonds to be their new number 1 linebacker, with their additions in the secondary. If this pick was not made for them to take a wide receiver, what were they doing?
Right.
What was their goal? What was the reason that they decided not to do what they did? What's the main key in all of that? And so for me, I think you go with a wide receiver here. You go with an impact player because what you saw a lot last year with Jackson Dart, being their big guy, was that when they had no Scattaboo, when they had no Neighbors, what was this team offensively? It was a whole of cadres of no one being there. And so in this case, this is where I think if this is the situation that they have, they're going to love that Carnell Tate is here for them at number 5. 6'3" wide receiver, little skinny, 195, got to bulk up a little bit here and there. But if you look at his career statistics and see how he was as a player, even go so far, even though he only had, 3 catches in the quarterfinal, semifinal game against Miami, this is a guy who still finds his way to the ball. He can have those big games. Against Minnesota this year, 9 catches for 183 yards and a touchdown. 2 touchdowns against Wisconsin. He's got a very fantastic catch radius, somebody who will fit in perfectly, be a really good primary vertical threat, something that the Giants need. You have Neighbors on one side, you have Tate on the other side, and Giants fans, including the one who's in the room with me right now, will be very, very happy to have 2 wide receivers for Dart to throw the ball to. Yes? Never mind. I didn't pay attention as I picked for her team.
He'll have that time to develop, not being this is a guy that's coming out that's going to be at other places would be a number 1 receiver coming out. And now he's going to be a number 2 behind one of the better receivers in the league. And he'll have that time to just really come into his own. The pressure will be so soft for him to come in and be just a number 2 receiver there.
Yep. And truthfully, if you look at the Ohio State receivers that have been drafted in the last couple of years,
a lot of good
and what
ones.
they've done, JSN.
Yep.
Agbuka last year was trending towards Rookie of the Year.
Garrett Wilson.
This is another guy. This is another good Ohio State receiver that can do a lot of great things, especially in this offense. I think Matt Nagy will have a lot of fun having those 2 weapons for him.
They kind of, at the start of this decade, they've kind of become in the conversation for wide receiver U because the names that we've been mentioning that have been coming in, and they have another kid that's on the roster right now who is early. Don't they have one of the already top 2 projected wide receivers for next year's draft class on the team as well?
Yes, they do. Yes,
so Ohio State is just churning out the offensive skill position players here so far because they had 2 running backs drafted last year as well. So Ohio State traditionally, in the trenches and on the defense, it's the offense that's really doing the headline. And now, granted, the defense were the first 2 picks here, and 3 of the first 5 guys being Ohio State players. When that's a conversation, that's like a fun fact. When was the last time one college saw potentially, if our mock ends up being what happens, which it should, 3 of the top 5 guys coming from a single university in a mock is amazing in a draft. So Cleveland Browns here. So each of Rick's picks have affected me, because honestly, those were my top 2 guys that I was going to end up having here when it came to the Cleveland Browns, because I think this team needs to shore up the offensive line, specifically left tackle, and this team needs a number 1 caliber wide receiver. Neither of which are on the board now, because like my thing is, like, I've seen a lot of people, I don't know if you guys have seen this as well, in terms of like projecting for the Browns. A lot of people have been projecting not Spencer Fernando, who I think is projected to be one of, if not maybe the best interior offensive lineman in this, maybe at if you're going to play him on the outside, the preference would be tackle. But I've seen a lot of people projecting Monroe Freeling here. My problem with that, though, is that this is the age-old discussion of fit versus need. They need line. They need a left tackle. Freeling is the next best base-level left tackle on the board. But do you trust that gap of you're taking him higher than a lot of people would be projecting? I mean, people are projecting him to go to Cleveland, but realistically, he should be more late, like 12 to 16 range is where I think the honest mock is. But people are having him go to Cleveland at 6 overall just because. And I've already said this is a relatively deep offensive line class. So I think if you're Cleveland, it's not ideal, but I think you can maybe wait a little bit to get that offensive tackle, because I think they have 2 first-round picks. They're one of several teams with 2 first-round picks here. I think it could be afforded a wait, which is that would have brought me to wanting to take Cardell Tate, but now no longer. So if you're Cleveland, why not just try to make your strength even stronger? And why not just hit your head against the brick wall even more? Look, Myles Garrett had one of the greatest defensive seasons we've ever seen last year, right? Literally broke records. You want to know what the problem is? Is that he can't be the only guy. He cannot be the only guy, dude.
Hard as he tries.
He was more than half of their production in the sack production, and they need another guy who can consistently get to the quarterback. And you know what? Maybe some people will disagree with this, including you two potentially, but if this offense is already going to be, potentially fine, and they're going to hope for some breakouts and maybe some later round picks here, why not? Why not just help out Myles Garrett a little bit? So I'm going to go with a guy who, look, you could say, oh, his arms are a little bit shorter. You could say this and that, but you know what? His teammate just went a couple picks ago, and I'm picking him now because you know what this guy has proven he can do since he entered the collegiate scene? He can get to the quarterback. And if you're Cleveland, the best chance you have to do anything is if you can have a defense that can raise hell. So give me Ruben Bain Jr. to go to the Cleveland Browns at 6 overall. Again, this is a case of needs versus like your needs on your team versus who's there. And I genuinely think with the way that we just did things, Ruben Bain is one of the 2 best players available there. And I end up going with him. So that's my justification. That's my cope.
Okay, so Quentin Coples and Vernon Golston 2.0 over there basically is what you have now. So
hey,
that should be kind of fun.
I think Myles Garrett's a little bit better than both those guys. And
When you said Cleveland Browns and hitting your head against the wall, I thought, oh, what is Ty Simpson going here now? They're doing another quarterback in this draft for the Browns?
No.
Okay, well, good for you then.
Hey, there's a second first round pick later.
Yeah, I like Bain. I think he's a good player. Like I said, the short arms be damned. He's fast enough to get to the quarterback and what you need. I like it. I think it's good.
I think we've seen the last couple of draft classes where it's like a guy will be said that his arms are a little bit too short, or like something is a little bit like less than what it really should be. But then it's just like, oh, but he's just going to be a good, like Joe Burrow. Like, remember, like a week before the draft, there was a whole thing about his hands, I think, right?
Yes.
And then it's like, okay, he's about the 4th or 5th best quarterback in the NFL right now, right? Like Will Campbell, he had a struggling end to the season, yes, because there was a whole thing about his stance and his arms last year. But like for the regular season, he was stout for the Patriots. That cannot be denied.
Sure.
That'll be damned. Anyways, 7th overall pick, Washington Commanders. Justin is back on the board here. So Justin, there's one player in particular I've been seeing a lot of people mock to the Commanders. If he ends up going to this point, I'm interested to see if you'll pick him or someone else. So with that said,
I'm pretty chalk so far this year on the draft from the players I've seen. So you're probably likely right. And there's 2 positions that I was looking at because realistically for a long time now, the secondary has been a real issue for the Commanders. And to me, there's a clear best safety here in Caleb Downs, but I think if the draft falls this way, you gotta help out your quarterback. And I'm gonna go with the best offensive player this year on the board, even regardless of the wide receivers and quarterbacks that may go in front of him, and that's gonna be Jeremiah Love. The idea here is this kid needs help. He needs the pressure taken off him, and they want to be a run team. They want to be a run first team. It is what really led to the struggle last year. They were expecting more out of Austin Eckler, who got hurt very early. They were expecting more out of their rookie in Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, who, did okay, but he wasn't a number one guy in his rookie year. They like to be by committee. I'm not saying they're going to get rid of the kid, but Krosky-Merritt will thrive more as a number two, and Jeremiah Love can come out and make that immediate production. Their goal is to be the Ravens with Lamar and whatever run game that they can have and be a run-first team. They want to be like that. It doesn't make sense to go anywhere else. This is a perfect fit in my mind, especially with that reworked offensive line.
100%. They're one of the handful of teams that really made significant reinvestments in their offensive line during free agency, and adding a potential first 4 or 5 years of his career dynamic running back in there. 100%. I think Jeremiah Love. It's that conversation's been interesting with him in this draft cycle, but I'm with you, Justin. He could end up being the best offensive player of this draft class, bar none, within the first couple of years. Easily early offensive rookie of the year candidate discussion for him. So there's that. All right, the Podfather gets the New Orleans Saints pick here, number 8 overall. Picked a older quarterback last year in Tyler Shuck. This roster is a mix of veterans, a couple young guys who have survived their draft classes in the last couple of years. And I have to say that because a couple guys have not. Shout out Trevor Penning, who's currently a Los Angeles Charger now. So with that being said, Podfather, what is the selection here? First off, David Bailey. I think this is the first. I haven't seen too many mocks where I'm even seeing him drop this down. So is that slide going to continue here, Podfather, or do the Saints need, we've been making the argument that, you need something more immediate, you need something more impactful. Do the Saints if David Bailey were to slide to this point, do they let him go past 8 or do they nab him up here?
No, because I feel like what they're going to do is they're going to look behind them and they're going to think to themselves, all right, let's cut our losses here. What's the player that we can afford to let go at this position that Kansas City will take that won't hurt us the most?
Mm-hmm.
And with Carnell Tate off the board already, and with them possibly leaning towards, I don't want to project, but possibly leaning towards wide receiver,
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the perfect spot for David Bailey to go, because far be it from me to say that this could be a good combination here, but I think Brandon Staley might actually be able to help David Bailey become a bigger star than he currently is. Not to mention the fact that if you look at what the Saints have lost in free agency going into this season, it's been a lot of edge guys. It's Cameron Jordan gone. It's Demario Davis gone. It's Alontae Taylor gone. So they need a new star on defense, and that's what David Bailey can be. There hasn't been a Texas Tech edge guy picked this high up since Tyree Wilson. And that was a project, but he's starting to round into his zone in Vegas, I believe, now. Bailey has that motor that speaks towards his athletic ability. Legitimate speed to power, good acceleration, very good length. The only thing he's got to really step on and improve are 2 things. 1, lower body strength, because if he doesn't have good lower body strength, they're going to get pushed around, especially in that NFC South with all those hog mollies on Tampa and Carolina. And number 2, the reason why he fits in New Orleans so well, he's a discipline problem. So, fix the penalties and you'll be okay. But I think that he's a good spot here. It's a good, it's where he falls in this wheel. It's where he should be. If you go too high, you risk the pick being a raw project. But here in the 8s, it's a sweet spot, I think, for him to go.
I like it. All right. Kansas City Chiefs. And they belong to Justin. I feel like Justin's had the Chiefs in a couple of these mocks here recently that we've done the last few years.
I feel like I've had him in almost every mock. I can't.
Not the Tanner McKee year. That was your boy.
That's true.
Greatest pick ever.
Yeah. Well, I think the needs here are, again, obvious. And to me, the Chiefs it's gonna come down to what they need the most and what they've struggled with since they've won their championship. And to me, as much as they could use a receiver, there's nobody under 5'10" with elite speed. So, there's not that Tyreek Hill model, which is the only receiver they tend to go for. So,
which, let's be honest, they might still sign him right now in free agency too.
we'll talk about that another time. But yeah, I'm gonna go with secondary here. And the question is, do you want that all overall player, or do you want to go for what you think could be the lockdown corner? I'm thinking that they're gonna go corner here, and they're gonna go with Mansour Delane out of LSU.
See, now the problem is that I was waiting for him to fall because Jurgen, you know, as a WWE guy, I was going to make the Mansoir joke.
Of course, yes.
But Justin takes him. It's a good pick. It's a really good pick for them, Justin. You're right.
I was gonna say they only lost their entire starting secondary in the free agency.
Yeah. Well, they gave up some of it, but you know, it worked out, you know, and they're gonna get a good size. He's quick, he's got good ball skills. He had 6 interceptions last year. He was targeted way less this year. He's got great matchups against high-end receivers in his college career. It's the pick that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
That's more than fair.
Don't hate it.
Yeah, I like it as well, all things considered. Speaking of which, all right, the Cincinnati Bengals. I feel like I've also had them relatively consistently in our box here for a couple years now. I mean, it's interesting now because Caleb Downs has fallen. And again, the question comes up, best player available versus need.
Well, I mean, in theory,
they do need a safety.
Yeah, they need a safety.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. They did sign a safety here in free agency, ironically away from the Chiefs, in Brian Cook, he's a relatively good player, all things considered.
Okay.
He's fine. He's fine. He's fine. And to be fair to him, Jordan Battle actually had a pretty good season last year. Like he had 4 interceptions for them. Like it's a situation where it's like, okay, which part of the defense are we going to help out here? Or which part of the team are we going to help out? Because it's the 2 most important parts. Are we going to give another offensive lineman in the fold, maybe one with a bit higher potential to help out Joe Burrow? Or are we going to go to the secondary here? And little torn. This is the hardest one I've made so far. The other ones, it was a little easier for me to not necessarily have the guy that I wanted at my picks. Although Tennessee was kind of like a pick the best stuff available at that point. AKA whichever Ohio State players you guys were going to have up there. Damn, it's hard. Because Caleb Downs, like I said, like, yeah, their safeties are good. Like, they just signed one, and Jordan Battle was good, but all due respect to Jordan Battle, you could probably get traded if Caleb Downs ends up being the pick. All things considered. And Caleb Downs is like, just talk about how good he is. Like, him being the third of the guys that get taken here is like not a disrespect to the how good he could be defensively with it, like how good his teammates were. His ability, the instincts that he has, he can absolutely just make a play at any given moment, whether it be in zone coverage or whether if you blitz him a little bit near towards the line of scrimmage. And I think he's a guy that can make a couple plays for you. So you know what? Let's keep this moving. Caleb Downs is going to be a Cincinnati Bengal. I'm sorry, Joe Burrow, but I mean, the defense needs to do something. Yeah. So if the offensive line can hold up for a couple extra seconds, maybe this will be what the defense needs to make a couple extra plays.
They're relying on defense? What Bengals team are you looking at, dude? Come on now.
All right, Rick. This team has the most selections when we get to part 2 of this down the line and we do rounds 2 and 3. This team has 7 picks in the first 3 rounds of this draft class.
They do.
This is the first of them. So Rick has had the most homework on a single team to do here. Although the good news is, I don't care if there's only 3 needs there. Every position is a need for the Miami Dolphins at this point.
Actually, the one that I'm looking at actually has 5 needs. Believe it or not, they used some extra spots there. But there's no real mystery to me as to what the position is. But the question is, where do I have them going at that position? Now, the funny thing is that you're looking at a team that has just given $70 million to a quarterback who has not thrown more than 500 plus yards in a season in his entire NFL career.
Yep.
What are we doing here, Miami? Why are we giving Malik Willis that big of a contract for basically a wing and a prayer, in a sense, which is basically what it is.
Well, let's also be honest. Then they rewarded him by trading away what would have been his number 1 offensive weapon.
Well, yes, there is that. There is that to be said here. So the question really is, if you're Miami, where are you going to find that next, guy, that next area of help here? And I think, like I said, I know the answer in my mind, but the question becomes, who is it going to be that they're going to take here at that position that's going to help them out here? There's an obvious choice that I think you can really see no issue with, if you know if you're looking at it that way. But I'm seeing another name that's kind of coming to the forefront, and I'm kind of liking him. And look, it's a brand new head coach, it's a brand new general manager. They're gonna want to make a splash in this, pun intended, for Miami. Um, and I think it's going to be a name that is kind of rising in the draft boards a little bit quicker than people anticipated. But one thing that I do think people like is the fact that this guy, is really an analytical guy's dream here. So give me, he's a bit high here, but give me Casey Concepcion out of Texas A&M, the
Ooh.
gadget wide receiver, because at 5'11", 187, he's really going to be that slot guy, that star. And the thing is that with Willis, you want him to accumulate some yards in his early going in his first season there. You have guys that are going to be your deeper vertical threats. They got Terrace Marshall from the Panthers at 6'2", Jalen Tolbert from the Cowboys at 6'4", but I want to see an up and under guy. Mekhi Lemon would have been probably the easy choice here and is somebody that I think they can look to. But Concepcion excites me a little bit more. I think that he's more of a guy that can truly speak to the volume of the fact that this is a team that's looking for more of a breakout sort of kind of aspect to it. Really good run or yards up to catch guy. Excellent guy in press coverage. I think a real good hit here for the Dolphins if they are able to get Concepcion out of this pick.
Look, I might ultimately have to overreach on one or two of my picks here coming up, so I'm not going to necessarily go against. But Justin, your reaction to the second wide receiver taken in this draft not being Malachi Lemon or even Jordan Tyson, who I know a lot of people have been high on here as we get closer to the draft.
I love it. I think it's fantastic. They should definitely do it.
Okay, yes. Let me ask the Jets fan what he thinks.
Yeah, there's receivers that I think the Jets should take before him. It would make sense to me more if they didn't have a pick later in the first round, to be completely honest, because this could have been a reach at 28 instead of at 11.
Yeah,
in my mind, it's not a bad pick, to be honest. Really, the kid does have potential to be an excellent receiver. Rick is right; he could be a real breakout candidate. If you think that this is going to be the kid, you can't really argue it. But then he's got to absolutely prove it. Some part of my mind is in the draft is not necessarily when you start to get lower, who is the best player. It's who do you think you're going to get when. And that's really my only struggle with this pick is that there's a very high chance he's going to be around at 28. And they could have easily gotten him and Tyson or addressed another position.
Of course. I mean, again, with the Dolphins having so many picks in this year's draft, I feel like you can kind of swing a little bit, on some picks than others. I think, you're right. If you want to go for a guy like a Lemon or a Tyson, it fits there. It makes more sense. But if you believe in a guy, like a Concepcion, if you think that he's going to be your answer there, and again, remember, this is really a brand new staff here. You've got Bobby Slowick as your OC, Kevin Patullo as your passing coordinator, so you've got two offensive minds over there. And with Patullo, again, the former Eagles offensive coordinator, they do like running those up and unders quite a bit. So maybe having a slot guy that can kind of change the length of the field and diversify your options might be better for them. But again, like you said, if he's available there at 30, you make the pick at 30, you try and get somebody else. But
yeah, let me ask you this. You think it's more important for them to pick a safe player that's a home run as a new regime coming in, or to, I mean, look, this could be the guy. I'm not saying that. Yeah. I love Concepcion. I'm happy as a Jets fan that he would go so high. I would be unhappy as a team drafting later that doesn't have an early pick that's going, there goes our guy. Now what do we do?
Yeah. So my thing is that I think you have to look at the overall picture. There was a warning given to John Eric Sullivan, the new GM, by owner Stephen Ross, not to mess things up or not to go safe, maybe to try and get Miami back into the fold with exciting players that will put butts in seats. And I think that this is a guy who will do that. I think it really depends. You're right. If it's the first draft, do you want to play it safer? Maybe. But knowing Miami and knowing how they're basically a whole new team with a whole new identity, maybe safe isn't the answer here. Maybe they want to try and go excitement in year one and see what happens. Anything's better than Tua. Like Willis.
There's the shot. Oh, there's the shot that we were waiting on. All right. Number 12, Dallas Cowboys. My selection with them. So the side of the football here is actually going to be the easiest one, I think, of my first couple picks, and that's defense. Because, ladies and gentlemen, sound the bells. They need defense. They're fine offensively. George Pickens, they're going to figure out the contract with him. He'll be in the fold. He'll be very much paid at some point here, and if not, just play on the franchise tag. Him and CeeDee Lamb next to each other. A somewhat of a revival in the rushing attack last year. Javonte Williams had a good year. You can make the argument that maybe a second running back would be a terrible idea to bring in, but not in the first round. Not with a 12 overall pick. No. So, and the offensive line, they've made so many additions to the offensive line. Well, I forget which one because they only have a million Tylers along the offensive line. I think one of them got a little bit more flack this year from the fans than the others. I forget if it was Guyton or Smith. One of them I remember reading was maybe struggling a little bit more this year than the rest of the O-line. So is that something you could maybe look at? Potentially. But I think just here at this level, I think it's going to be the defense is the first thing I'm going to focus on. And really, it could be anything along the defense here, right? Like there's an argument for maybe a CJ Allen here. He's one of the older guys in this draft, right? But Akeem Mesidor is a guy who, you're taking a risk on draft. First of all, let me just clarify, not my pick, but you're going to end up taking a risk. A guy who's a bit older, he's going to be almost, I think, 29, 30 by the time his rookie deal's over. So literally making a selection with him would be like, okay, this guy needs to be this good, this quickly, this soon, because probably the best years of his career are going to be his rookie contract. So he's obviously going to hope to get drafted as high as possible to get paid the most amount he can in the first 4 years of his career, as he should. But I think for me, again, it's all about where the draft falls, and if you were the Cowboys, in real life, the Cowboys might, with how our draft played out, maybe they would trade up to the Saints pick, right, to get Bailey in the fold because maybe they would have liked him. I think maybe going with one of these pass rushers might be. I shouldn't say it's too high because, like, to me, what I'm looking at is safety, and it's a little tough. I think I'm leaning towards myself personally. I think kind of like you were talking about, Rick, safety versus being bold. Jerry Jones don't do nothing safe, ladies and gentlemen. So while I personally think that Dylan Feineman is pretty good, I think he could be really great coming out of Oregon, and I think he'll be able to help any team. I could see Jerry Jones falling in love with this guy who is rangy, uber athletic, can be really good. He finishes his tackles, and he also, and it's noted in his scouting report, he's a bit of a peanut punch guy because he has a lot of forced fumbles. So that's why I didn't really harp too much on Rick's slight overreach, quote unquote, because I think I might be reaching here, but I think I could see the Cowboys being in love with this guy, and they need more youth in the secondary, and I'm going to give them youth here with Emmanuel McNeil Warren. I think out of Toledo could be a guy that I see the Cowboys falling in love with, and I think they could select him 12th overall. Dude is long, rangy. I think he's like, 6'3.5", give or take. I could see them absolutely falling in love with him. Malik Hooker is 30, like going on 31. I think his time is not going to be that much longer. So you can slot him somewhere else, and you can have this young kid start to take a couple snaps there starting. So give me McNeil Warren at 12 overall for the Cowboys.
Listen, based on what they did in the offseason, free agency wise, Elijah Clark and PJ Locke weren't going to be the answers for them. So if you want to go for a safety this high, swing it 100%. I'm in favor of that. I think it's a good pick. Quinion Mitchell's teammate out of Toledo, and Mitchell's been a very good pro player. So
yep.
Maybe there's something in the water in the Glass Bowl in Ohio. Never know.
If Mansour had fallen to this point, he would have been the slam dunk selection. And I don't want to say that Jermod McCoy couldn't have been the guy either. I was definitely considering him, but I think missing this past season for an injury is something. It's that typical thing that a lot of teams, I think, in the first round are going to question. And I think a team like the Cowboys that maybe are considering him, if it's between him, who just missed out this past season with injury due to picking a guy who was a bit healthier, I think usually teams err on the side of caution with the guy who was able to play this past year. So that being said, the Los Angeles Rams pick now 13th overall. That belongs to Justin.
That does. Yeah. So I mean,
rare first round pick here for the Rams.
What I was just gonna say. If they even have this chance to make this pick, I'm gonna be shocked. When was the last time we saw a Rams first round pick, let alone in the top 15? That being said, if this is the way the board falls, they have to be thrilled. There's lots of guys here that I think would be an excellent fit. I was starting to think that maybe, they can get go with the real luxury pick and take a look at Kenyon Sadiq. I think he would be an excellent fit there. He does everything they want. They love to play with that kind of position, and their tight ends are starting to get a little older.
Yeah.
That being said, I think that they generally go safe. So my thought is that they're going to go with Monroe Freeling out of Georgia, who I like a lot as well. Big kid, 6'7", 315 pounds. He's, mocked as a guy who is really best suited to play in an inside zone heavy system, which is exactly how the Rams play. They love that wide zone look. They love that run game. They are just, a match made in heaven. The fit versus the time where he's being taken is excellent. They love to help out Puka Nacua. They love to help out Stafford. They have good wide receivers, although they don't have great wide receiver depth, which maybe we'll address later. But yeah, I think this is an excellent fit for them.
I agree. I like it.
And a tease for later on. Look at that from Justin. That's the reason why he's the champion, everybody.
He's got it. All right. Baltimore Ravens here, and I have this pick, the pick that they were able to regain by feigning a bad physical for Max Crosby. So this could have been the second Raiders pick of the first round, but instead it's going to be the lone Ravens pick on that one. See, Justin's been gone for so long, so we never really got to get his take on it. Justin, how did you react to that whole saga, them waiving the trade of Max Crosby?
Look, it's not going to make you any friends, but they got an equal caliber player for a not first round draft pick. They're probably going to have to pay Crosby about the same amount. So might as well.
Fair enough. All right. Now my selection here with the Ravens. Obviously, there's the potential to go wide receiver here, and there are a couple of good wide receivers that are starting to fall here. So it's something to for sure select. But I think even with John Harbaugh not being there anymore, and old habits die hard, and I just don't see the Ravens going with a wide receiver this high up in the draft at 14th overall. And that's not even. I'm not going to say it's a bad thing, nor is it a good thing. Yeah. And if you make the pick count, that's all that really matters at the end of the day. And I think if you're Baltimore here, you can really make this pick count. I'm just like you, Justin. I am very much considering like Kenyon Sadiq is in the fold there because you could get your next guy to replace Mark Andrews. And we've seen
gone.
Yes, exactly. Isaiah Likely, who was supposed to be the heir apparent.
That 2 tight end set.
100%. So he's a guy. Now the question is like with picking a guy like a Kenyon Sadiq, like I think it's going to end in a case like Baltimore, all due respect to Mark Andrews, you're going to get supplanted real quick because this kid, like all the draft comps, all the articles I'm reading, like he's being called a unicorn for a reason. He is the de facto number one tight end in this class, seen as the highest upside of the tight ends. And I definitely see it for sure. But again, I think similar to Justin, as much as I do think that there would be some damage done with Kenyon Sadiq in an offense, I do have to go, I think, with what the Ravens will be doing here. And I think they'll go safe. I think they lost a lot of guys in free agency. And even the few moves they made, I think they want to compound on that. I think, especially after last season, offensive line is not necessarily like locked in the fold. Like they want to build some depth there. And I think, the interior of that line especially is something they want to focus on. No pure center really at this point, I think that they would consider taking up this high. But I'm going to go with a guy who's like just a pure guard and a pure run blocker out of Penn State. I mentioned the Big Ten earlier for a reason. Give me old buddy here. Olava Vega. I think I was relatively close.
Pardon?
Ione. I'm gonna take him with the Ravens pick at 14. Relatively popular selection that I've seen in a couple mocks with him. I think it makes sense. I think you're just getting the guy who is absolute, like he's built like a prototypical guard, firm hands, can really control things on the inside, can help create a rushing attack to go well and balance well. And Derrick Henry's still there. And let's assume that now that John Harbaugh's not there, he's not going to get shut out of games when it matters. I think this is going to be a guy who is going to help right away, plug him in as a day one starter. He's going to help that rushing attack just get back to being lethal for Baltimore. So that's my selection there. Again, tough. There are tough things for teams to consider here in this first round. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are next. That means it's the Podfather.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
Oh, okay then. Well, that's
don't sound too surprised there.
Well, I guess I was caught napping. I thought that I was waiting for the Lions pick, but I forgot that I had the Bucks because I wasn't really paying attention to the text you were sending earlier today. So I apologize on that end.
Don't forget the powers that be made it so that we would have no back-to-back selections in this first round.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about the powers that be, bro. Okay, cool. Sounds good. Well, it's really quite funny to me that one of the things that y'all have been mentioning constantly is Kenyon Sadiq this and Kenyon Sadiq that. Tampa Bay needs a tight end, don't they? I mean, they did re-sign Kate Otten and they have Keefe, but I mean, come on. What's one more weapon for Baker Mayfield? Yes, they lost Mike Evans, but they still have Godwin and Ibuka. What's one more weapon for them? Kenyon Sadiq. Go to Tampa Bay, my friend. Go have some fun. 6'3".
You think a Todd Bowles-led team is really going to pick a guy like that in the first round?
Well, who's to say that Todd Bowles is going to be leading this team next year? If they have another top 15 pick, probably not going to be him. Look, I think that it's one of those exciting prospects that you keep mentioning, and a guy who does have the right traits for them and the right explosiveness that they could use. And Baker Mayfield does love his tight ends. He's very good at getting the ball to his tight end, role players that are there. So, yeah, it's a little high for a tight end, but at the same time, look at every other team that's been in the league. Kyle Pitts went 4, Brock Bowers went 12. It's not out of the realm of possibility anymore. So why not? And if this was a guy that the Jets wanted at 16, well, Stephen Curry went one pick before Jordan Hill. So, why not?
I was going to say, I think anywhere from like this 10 to 15 range, I think the conversations will start on Kenyon Sadiq. I think teams will be interested. So
yeah,
this is where.
Yeah. So Justin, Rick mentioned he has the Lions pick, and I have the Vikings pick thereafter. But before we get to that, Justin has the 16th overall.
Justin does have the 16th overall, and again, this draft seems to be falling in the way that, for my guys, this is where I want to be. And for me, what I think the Jets will do is never correct. So what I think the right thing to do would be to take Malachi Lemon here.
Okay.
At 16, a good, strong, fast guy. He's athletic. He's smart. He's got great body control, and he's going to play inside the numbers as opposed to Garrett Wilson, who plays a lot of outside the numbers ball. It's just, again, a good fit, the right time to pick the guy. And this could be a very good 1-2 punch if they ever find a quarterback, which will never happen. So
never.
I was going to say, when it comes to him, Justin, he's one of, if not, you could make the argument, the best guy in this draft when it comes to making separation and getting off the line like you need to want to play. Like if he beats you on his second step, he's gone, and it could be a touchdown. So that's kind of that big play element that the Jets need. If the draft shakes up like this, and if they were to make a selection like this, no matter who the quarterback is next year, who's going to be the temporary tank commander for them going into 2027, like you kind of need a guy that can help diversify that offense, because Garrett Wilson just needs help when it comes to that offense, like that wide receiver room. And, Breece Hall is going to have to be a Jet for an extra year. Give him a little bit of something there. So, Podfather, the Lions selection is yours.
Once again, it's something that I think we talk about quite often, where the draft falls the way that I think teams will want. And if I'm the Lions right here, I am beyond thrilled with my luck, because I now have a choice between two former teammates that play the same position to fill a massive need on my offensive line. The question is, which one do I go with? Do I go with the older prospect who, has a little bit more potential, or maybe the younger prospect who has a bit more game to kind of go through here? For me, I think the answer is Spencer Fano out of Utah, the O tackle. Because again, I feel like if you look at this team, yes, they have Penei Sewell at right tackle, but right now their left tackle starts off with Giovanni Manu, and it ends with Giovanni Manu, who is a guy who was drafted not only in the NFL draft, but also the CFL draft. They don't have another left tackle that's there. And instead of moving a guy like Devin Cochran over to the left side, just get another left tackle in there and have him compete. Spencer Fano, 6'6", 305. He's got really good recalibration quickness, and is a good scheme versatile run blocking guy, which is what they need if they're going to have Jahmyr Gibbs become more of a player on this team. So I think that that's the way that they need to go with it is to pick up Fano here. Him having fallen to 17 is incredible value for the Lions at this spot, I think.
Yeah. Now, I will say the only thing I would say about his selection is that in the reports I've read about him, is that the belief is that at the pros, he may not be suited for left tackle. And so I wonder if this is finally the season. I'm not, by the way, this is not to discredit your pick, but I'm almost wondering if this is finally the season where you move Penei Sewell to left tackle. I know he's been a baller at right tackle in his career so far because you had Taylor Decker, but I'm going to be honest with you. I think Penei Sewell should have been the left tackle this entire time. Like,
yeah.
I like coming out of college, he was the best offensive tackle, left tackle prospect that we had seen in years. And honestly, there have been some good ones, but I don't think we've had a guy that good since. So, I'm not disagreeing with your pick here, Rick. Like, I think if you want to take like the shot and if you believe that he could play it, cool. But I even think if you're Detroit, this gives you the flexibility to finally make Penei Sewell the franchise left tackle. And Fano, he played some guard, he played right tackle. I think even for half a season or a season, he even played center. Like he's played every other position along that offensive line. I don't think he'll be put at center, but maybe somewhere on that right side of the line because I think this pick, if it falls this way for Detroit, could finally be the kick they need to make Penei Sewell their franchise left tackle. And so I think this is
Yeah, I don't hate that either. I mean, if you do want to go that route and have the rookie start right tackle, so he's not the blind spot guy right away, I think that's not a bad idea. But I will say there is precedent for having a rookie be that left tackle. Just look in the Super Bowl, Will Campbell. He got there as a left tackle in the Super Bowl. Was he great? No, but he was able to have his team get there. So it's not totally out of their own possibility. It just depends on what they want to do. But having another body on the offensive line is always going to help you out, especially with this team.
No, yeah, 100%. I don't. It's not that you can't have a rookie starter left tackle. It's more so trusting a guy who is not projected to be like. I think Will Campbell, a lot of people thought could have been a left tackle last year, and then after his rookie year, it's like maybe towards the end, maybe consider a left guard if you could get a franchise left tackle. Whereas maybe don't. Yeah. So all right, Minnesota Vikings here. This is another one where you almost wish you could like this was a 2 running back class here because behind Jeremiah Love, I will say there's some decent running backs, but I don't know if
there's a drop.
Exactly. I think real quick, do you guys agree, disagree? I think between the number 1 and number 2 prospect at any position, I think the biggest gap right now is running back, at least from perception.
Tight end's got a gap too, but
it does.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think ironically, it's those two. It's running back and tight end. I think they'd almost want that, but I think second, third round, you could get a pretty good running back in this draft class as well because Aaron Jones, he barely was returned. And speaking of veterans who actually didn't return to this team, a guy who's still on the market. Maybe he's not going to be a Minnesota Viking if he does end up playing next year. Harrison Smith. And you know what? It's not exactly a comp. I'm not comparing this guy to Harrison Smith. He does not play like Harrison Smith. But you need an extra starting safety. Look, this team, I have been harping on this for years. This team needs youth on the defensive side of the ball. And that's what I believed in. And that's what I think they're going to do. And look, I had a chance to take this guy earlier. And, well, the Cowboys technically had the chance to take him earlier. And I'm going to take him now. Dylan Thieneman out of Oregon. I like him as a player. I think he's going to be a very strong starter. As a safety, had a lot of really good production in his 3 seasons at college that saw him, he started at Purdue actually before moving over to Oregon and just being an absolute baller for them this past year. What was a really great season for them. First team all Big Ten and making a second team All-American spot. And what he's really good at? He's really good at reading the quarterback. He's very good at keeping his eyes on the QB and not really being faked out. When quarterbacks kind of try to use their eyes to, get corners, get safeties off it, he's very good at following that. So I think that's the kind of guy you need here to really finally rebuild the secondary. I think in Minnesota, they've been striking out with a lot of picks in the secondary the last couple of years, right? Like Seen from years back, not even on the team. Andrew Booth Jr. he barely made it out of his rookie year with Minnesota, right? I think the front 7 could use some youth, but I don't think it's as pressing as their secondary. I think the Vikings, there's an argument to be made that their first 2 selections should both be on their secondary, which the last time they did that didn't work out well. So maybe just one of the first 2 selections should be at secondary. And I'm making a Thieneman in this one. I think he's a good pick for them here. Carolina.
I was going to say, you're either talking yourself into it or talking yourself out of it. One of the 2.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Essentially. So, Justin, Carolina Panthers are here, and they are all yours. What is your selection here?
That is a good question because there's a lot of guys here that I think would fit, but not necessarily fill a need. There's a lot of question about what would make sense to go here. I'm thinking receiver, but I'm not going to lie. I'm okay. It's not a need, but I'm okay with pairing them with another top tight end. And the way the board has fallen, there's a couple guys that I would be interested in. I'm going to avoid anyone that I think might have any, injury concern here for the Panthers, because I think that is generally a concern for them season after season. So I might not take Jermod McCoy or Jordan Tyson, but I think I'm going to go with my gut. I'm going to go. It's a little bit of a reach here, but not too much. And I'm going to go with Omar Cooper Jr. out of Indiana. 6 foot. He's a great athlete. He's projected as a number 2, which is fine because they have Ted McMillan. They have they have a good wide receiver room, but they don't have any of those really big play guys that get you the touchdown when you need to get it. At least not last year. So that might be on Bryce Young. But if you keep equipping him with weapons, you're going to find out if this is the guy or this is not the guy. And if you're bringing in a rookie quarterback the next year, all of a sudden you got a stacked wide receiver room to help him out.
Yeah, no, that fantastic pick right there. I actually do agree. Like when you have a Ted McMillan, who you absolutely aced the selection of last year, if he's going to be your wide receiver 1, get another talented guy. And I was reading in a scouting report, Rick, that he has the potential to kind of play the slot for them here. So like, if he doesn't end up being one of those like guys on the outside, if you found your go-to guy to hit in those short routes in the middle of the field, right, for those like 5-7 yard plays, or even those 10, 12, 14 yard, strikes down the middle, if that's what you believe in, and give Bryce Young as many weapons as possible, right? Like this is, God, I mean, it was years ago when he was drafted, when we had his mock, but like he's entering a critical time for his development right now, and I don't disagree with Justin's pick here of giving him another weapon to play with.
No, I loved Omar Cooper in college. I thought that he was an excellent receiver, but also somebody that complemented Fernando Mendoza really well, and somebody that kind of earned his way up the draft board with a really solid final season in Indiana with Chris Signetti and the Hoosiers. I think that this was a player that kind of came from nowhere to become the top player that he is. And I think if he goes to Carolina, more power to him, because that's, again, it gives Bryce Young one more weapon to throw to, and the Panthers one less reason to excuse Bryce Young's terrible play if he is still the Bryce Young that we know that he can and will probably be.
Oh, Lordy. So that's kind of a backhanded compliment there for Bryce Young more so. So there's that. All right, the Dallas Cowboys up again. So this is my selection right here. Went in the secondary in this first pick, and now there's a little bit more to get to play around with here. If you are Dallas, you've taken care of a piece in the secondary with your first selection. Do you hit that market again? I mean, I believe that Deron Blaine is going to be projected to be their guy. If they could hopefully have him be healthy for the entire year, there's that hope. And they have a couple other young guys there, and Siobhan Ravel Jr. and Kobe Durant. They're going to hope to get something out of it. All things considered, I'm almost wondering I feel like it was like half a reach with the first pick, and I almost hope I almost think if you're Dallas, like you might potentially have to do that again here coming up. Because when I just look at the team, it's like, that front four in particular, like you have Quinnen Williams there, you made the trade for last year, right? Like you're going to hope that he can do a lot for you, not as a Micah Parsons replacement, as being Micah Parsons. I'm not going to make that comparison, but it's more so, can he make that big pass rushing impact you need him to? You're taking the risk of actually, you didn't wait for him to get cut. You end up trading for him, Rashawn Gary from the Dallas Cowboys. Or from the Green Bay Packers, adding him to the Cowboys. And you need those two guys to make an impact for you. And I think they can together, along with some decent depth up the middle from the defensive tackle spot. They're really going to need him to play better this year because Kenny Clark was last year. But maybe adding another guy in the defense to help with the rushing defense can help you out. And you know what? I earmarked this guy for a bit, and I feel like he's going to be taken in the next couple picks, maybe especially with the Steelers. This guy's going to be, I think, kind of similar to the pick I made for Tennessee earlier. I think I'm adding a linebacker here that's going to be the centerpiece of this linebacking core, and I think his number one thing is going to be helping out when it comes to stopping running backs, dicing you up. And in this division, it's Cam Scatterbo. it's Jeremiah Love in this draft with the Armach and the way it's gone, and it's Saquon Barkley. And I think CJ Allen out of Georgia is going to be the guy that the Cowboys take here. I know, sacrilegious for me to have a Georgia player not go to the Philadelphia Eagles if he was going to go to an NFC East team. Then again, when we got there, I would have just auto-selected that pick for Rick because I know he doesn't even want to make that Eagles pick to begin with.
I don't, but that's okay.
But no, like, I think Allen is great. I think coming out, like, again, we're talking about gaps, you know, the Ohio State players are so highly touted that it feels like looking at the guys underneath them, it feels like such a gap. But I think behind Sonny Styles, you know, projecting Reese to be more that edge rusher impact guy, projecting Styles to be the traditional linebacker compared to the two of them. I think CJ Allen was kind of the next guy where it's like, you know, I think if you make him a key part of your linebacking core, I think he's going to, you know, do a lot of great things right away. I think he can help when it comes to like attacking a rushing scheme and being able to recognize that and helping get to the line of scrimmage to stuff a running back and maybe limiting the damage that could be done on a play. Again, there's 3 explosive running backs in that division that you're going to have to contend with. And I think Allen will be able to help with that and then some. So he's my selection there at 20th overall. 21st overall pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that's Justin.
That is Justin. And Justin is also a little torn here because things for the Steelers haven't been so great. We don't have word on Aaron Rodgers yet, right?
Correct. It's still very up in the air if he's gonna do like a 2-week darkness retreat before or after the draft to make his decision. You know,
hey, listen, it happens to the best of us. I came back and I had a whole new look on life and a whole new beard.
Fair. You know what? Maybe guys, I think we missed it in the main event of night 1 of WrestleMania when Pat McAfee gets knocked down by Jelly Roll. Aaron Rodgers is going to hit Jelly Roll and Cody Rhodes with a steel chair, and he's going to align with Randy Orton and Pat McAfee.
Possibly,
because, you know, great booking. Anyways,
yes.
Justin, your pick.
Well, I think I'm gonna go in blatant, you know, opposition to Rick's whole life philosophy here, and I'm going to go with Caden Proctor out of Alabama. Big time guy, considered playing left tackle his whole career. I think, you know, they move him into guard, which is a need. They do need tackle, however, I think that because of his, you know, just overall general play, his arm length, his foot speed, he's got the strong, powerful offensive line kind of body, but he just strikes me more as an interior guy. You build from the inside out, and I think that we're going to try and have to get back to real Steeler football. So that being said, Caden Proctor, Alabama.
Rick will have his jokes, but I think Caden Proctor is a guy that in this back half of the first round, a lot of teams are going to take a look at. Dude, he's a physical freak. He could be. I was going to say this about the pick you made earlier with the kid from Georgia, Freeland. Justin, like, he's a mauler. Proctor's a fucking mauler, dude. Like
but so was Evan Neal coming out of college. You saw how well that worked.
I don't remember Evan Neal being called a mauler necessarily. He was a good tackle.
Evan Neal was 6'7", the same size that Caden Proctor is. So, you know, it's the same thing. Thank you. You heard it here first. See.
And what did you just say about Evan Neal before when we were talking about him?
I didn't say that. I said my wife said that he sucks.
No, well, what did you say before when we talked about Evan Neal?
Okay, but here's the deal.
That'd be better if we moved him into guard.
Mekhi Becton moved into guard, and he won a Super Bowl in his first year.
I'm just saying, what did I say? I said, do we keep him at tackle or we put him into guard?
Who? Proctor?
Caden Proctor.
I mean, honestly, truthfully, that might be the way that the football is now, is that you have these 6'7" guys that are in your interior as your guards now. It just makes sense. So
I just think
but I don't know about moving him into the interior right away. That's the thing. I think you got to try him out at the outside. So maybe it's not the worst idea. But
they need both.
Again, who's he blocking for? Who's the quarterback?
Well, you'll worry about that next year when they have a better pick.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. The idea for a team like the Steelers, the idea that I have for them is the first-year head coach. You know, it's going to be big shoes to fill. He's the 4th head coach we've seen in 50 years for the Steelers.
Yeah.
The idea is you are setting up for what you think your team is going to be next year. They're not going to have the quarterback of the future this year. It's just not going to happen. They're not taking him at 21. Make sure your team is ready to bring that quarterback in. See, that's the problem with a lot of these teams is that you get that first overall pick, and then you first have to build the team.
Yep.
And then it's hard to win with a quarterback that's taking up 25% of your salary. If you have the team built already, you have the positions, you have the pieces, and then you can take a quarterback later, in your tenure, first year, second year, after you've built up some talent, it's a lot easier to move forward stronger.
Indeed, I'm adjusting on
the
that.
prospect is going to be Joe Burrow, where you put him on a bad team and all of a sudden they're a Super Bowl candidate.
100%. I'm adjusting on that one. I think Proctor is a good pick, and I think especially going to a team like the Steelers, I think they could do it. Look, they turned Dan Moore into a freaking guy who got paid $80+ million by another team. Like I think they can make Kane Proctor be a little something, and maybe they'll keep him in 4 years' time, or 5 years, depending on exercising the 5th-year option and all that jazz. Next selection, myself, the Los Angeles Chargers. This team could just stay healthy. If this offensive line could just stay healthy, Joe Burrow would just be, I made a mistake. Justin Herbert, after all these years, I've finally been infected. To be fair, being given 2 of the quarterbacks that have the same exact story of, they need offensive line protection is bound to confuse them. But Justin Herbert could use a little bit more protection up front. Very much something I'm considering, at least interior. The Chargers, when healthy, have the best 2 tackles in football. Like, I don't think that's a question. Slater and Alt are.
The question is, how often have they stayed healthy? Have they even played? How many snaps have they played together?
This past season? None.
Well, in general, Alt was a rookie this year, right?
Yeah, fair point.
Second year.
No, I think it was his second year.
Either way. So Slater's been hurt back-to-back years.
Yeah, exactly. That is just awful luck, all things considered. But I think I could see a little bit through it. A bit of a paper tiger is that Chargers defense in terms of I think the sack production last year that they were able to get. Again, when a lot of your sack production comes from one guy, I kind of have to wonder what that's masking for you. And I think if there's one thing that this Chargers team, I'm hesitant on what I think they could do good at next year. It's the potential of their rushing defense. I don't know. When I look at the interior of that defensive line, especially like right in the middle of all those guys you're going to have being pass rushers, whether it be bringing down Khalil Mack or Tuli Puolutu, he had 13 sacks or something like that last year. Like he was their leading sack getter. I think the interior that is supposed to help with the rushing opposing rushing attacks is my biggest concern with the Chargers. Like you brought in a couple a veteran in the offseason, Dalvin Tomlinson. But that does not move me. Like the Chargers made some decent additions this offseason, but I don't think defensive tackle is one of them. And I'm actually looking at defensive tackle on this team, for this pick. And you know what? A lot of his teammates already went earlier in this draft. And you know what? Even though someone's going to have to tell Jim Harbaugh, look, you can't just draft guys from Michigan. You have to be willing to take other Big Ten players. And I'm going to take a guy who I actually think. Maybe he'll have some underrated sack production. Maybe he'll get 3, 4.5, 5-ish sacks, give or take. But I think what he'll do for you in the rushing game with being as good of a guy with run stuffing as he is and can immediately if the offensive lineman isn't ready, he can absolutely push them back and get to the quarterback, get to the running back. Give me the kid from Ohio State that was plugging up the middle for their team these past couple seasons, Caden McDonald, as the centerpiece of the interior defensive line for the Chargers at 22 in this 2026 mock. I'm just not I'm not as sold on them. Don't get me wrong, they should pick offensive line. They probably will pick it in this first round in real life, and I don't blame it. But I think the Chargers are on the list of top 3-4 teams that could disappoint you this season from what they were last year. I think they should be on that list. I think they're a bit of a paper tiger right now as a wild card team. I'm not 100% sold on them. And I think shoring up the rushing defense and the interior would do them good.
I do like paper tigers, that's for sure.
They're fun to fold like origami it, but
yes.
Here's the problem with origami is that you put too much pressure on it and it's going to break and it's going to look terrible.
I also agree with that. Immensely.
Rick so does not want to make this pick right now.
I don't, but I actually do have a decent enough theory about where I would go if I were them, and also a player that I think, I hate to say it, a player that I think I kind of do like in this scenario for them. If I'm the Eagles, I know for a fact that I need to find the next guy after Lane Johnson retires, and that's going to be coming around the mountain sooner rather than later. And so even though it's not a pick that's exciting in any way, shape, or form, it's a pick that does make the most sense for them. But I think they need somebody who's a little more pro-ready than somebody who is a project. Give him a chance to sit behind Lane Johnson for a year and then, learn the ropes and then become that next strong left tackle here or strong right tackle here. And I'm going to go with the guy who's got maybe the highest ceiling in the draft class this year, and that's Blake Miller, the offensive tackle out of Clemson.
Okay.
6'6", 315, 4,000 snaps and 54 starts. He was a 4-year starter for Clemson and Death Valley. Very light-footed, very good development all around. And again, a guy who I think can learn a lot from being behind Lane Johnson here. And I think that's somebody that, knowing the Eagles and knowing what they need to do and what they're looking to do on offense, this is the right selection for them at this time. So I feel like it's a home run pick here for them. Not a Georgia guy, but it's the next best thing.
Yeah, and like you said, you get a 3-4 year starter for you that was on a really good what has traditionally been a good ACC team until the last couple of years. God, I can't wait when Dabo Sweeney finally rage quits out of college football.
Yes, please.
But but a good player there in Miller, to say the very least. Justin, you look intrigued by that selection. Were you hoping Blake Miller was going to fall maybe a couple extra spots down there for you?
No, I'm doing my own research.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
I'm real into it right now. All right,
I love it. I love the fact that you're into it. No, definitely a guy that I was considering with my pick, and to say the very least, somewhat similar to you, Rick. Like when I was talking about the Cleveland Browns earlier and their need for the offensive line, especially at that tackle spot, they have a guy in DeJuan Jones, who I think should be ready for the start of the season, if I'm not mistaken, and they're going to give him one last crack at trying to be the starting left tackle for the team. And with all the additions that they made, they brought in Titus Howard, they brought in Elton Jenkins. Like there's multiple guys on the Browns offensive line that could start at left tackle early, to where it could maybe mitigate some of the need that they have at the offensive line spot early here. So I was concerned you were going to take an offensive lineman I had my eyes on, but truth be told, all things considered, I think if you're the Cleveland Browns, look, if you're going to give Todd Monken a modicum of a shot, you got to give him a little bit of something here. And I think if you're the Cleveland Browns, I think if this guy does end up going down all the way here to this selection, I think you're going to be happy. One of the smoothest route runners in the league, or coming out of college football this season. I think he's going to be very fantastic. I think he is going to absolutely be great. And ironically, he was coached by a former AFC North wide receiver here. So bring him into the fold. Give me Jordan Tyson out of Arizona State. Hines Ward was a guy that personally did a lot of coaching for him at the collegiate ranks. And I think, that wide receiver room is looking bleak, to say the very least. And look, this show is a little higher on Dylan Gabriel than Shedeur Sanders from last year. Not saying much. Neither of them played well. And he who shall not be named is likely going to be returning into the fold next season.
Why?
So it's a good question. So whether it's he who shall not be named or one of their quarterbacks from last year, they need more than one guy to throw it to. They need someone to throw it to aside from a Jerry Jeudy or Harold Fenton Jr. Like Isaiah Bond just didn't really do anything. First off, Isaiah Bond, it was that weird situation. Like, I think it was after our mock, there was the news came out about him that there was some off-field issue that ended up turning up just before or just after the draft as well. Because we're always timely on the show, ladies and gentlemen. We always do this right before the draft. So give me a more reliable guy both on and off the field when it comes to the wide receiver room. Give me Jordan Tyson at 24th overall. And again, this is part of, I said it before and I'll say it again, I think the offensive line here, both tackles and guards, is really deep in this draft. And I think that the Browns can afford getting a guy in a Jordan Tyson here. And with their early second-round pick, they'll be able to grab a guy coming up from that offensive line spot. So the Chicago Bears, 25th overall, and this pick is not being made by the former Bears fan, Father Rick. It is being made. It is being made by the games master himself, the champion Justin. So Justin, Bears were a bit of a breakout. Well, not even a bit. They were the breakout story, you could argue, in the NFC last year, amongst a story of breakouts, or amongst a season of breakouts in that conference. I feel they were arguably the best one, a year or two ahead of schedule. Ben Johnson was great. What do they add here in your mind to help fuel what is honestly kind of a wide open NFC North in 2026 ?
Yeah, I mean, look, they they were strong last year for, in my mind, for one reason only. And the reason they stayed in games is because that defense was just excellent. They could turn the ball over. They kept their team in games. They're the reason that offense had the ability to come back so often. So I'm looking to strengthen that team, as that defense, as best I can. And in my mind, their top need right now is interior. I'm thinking that I'm going to go with Christian Miller here out of Georgia. Again, the redshirt junior, 6'4", 310 pounds. He's got a good first step. He's played, A gap, B gap. He's played all over the field, and he gets after the quarterback. He's something that I think will just add to an already strong part of their defense team is the point I'm trying to make. And yeah, I just think, why not let the rich get richer?
No, fair. And I think the Bears really they lost multiple pieces on that defensive side of the ball. Like it wouldn't surprise me if they attacked the draft. Rick, we were talking about it in the free agency episode. I think he went to the Jets. I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head. Their corner who had like 6 interceptions last year. I think he signed a 1-year deal with the Jets, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I forgot his name too, but you're right.
And they also lost like 1 or 2 of their linebackers as well. So like ultimately, like any level of the defense, I think is a good shout for them. So I think that's a pretty good selection right there, Justin. I think that's a solid pick right there. Speaking of teams that need to make a solid pick in some way, shape, or form, man, this team wishes this linebacker class was a lot deeper than it is, because the Buffalo Bills would like an extra linebacker in the fold right now. Not just because it's a need, but generally speaking, what has been a team decimated by injuries for several years now. This Bills team, like, how many times have I said it for years now? If not now, then when? And that's going to be the story for them right at this moment. They need to make impact additions in this draft class, 100%. And I think what they need is they need to bring in a guy who's going to help. Really, they need a guy that's going to help immediately. And again, this is kind of the point that I was mentioning earlier of when you're looking at your board and how it shapes out and how a guy grades out and what he did last year, what did he do the year before. Like me personally, I try to look for consistency as much as I can when it comes to like prospects. I'm not the biggest fan of like these guys who only come out for 1 year and that's it. And they sometimes end up not being that great. Now, of course, there are exceptions. Joe Burrow, thank you very much for being someone who always makes me reconsider it now, all things considered. It usually tends to be like those quarterbacks that end up breaking that trend. But for the most part, from positions, I like to try to have a guy who it's consistency in his career. And from day one, he was able to be something early on for a team. And that's what I'm going to do with this selection here for the Bills. It's not listed as a need for them, funny enough, but I still think they should have this as a need, all things considered, because I'm not sold on the Buffalo Bills quarterback room. I'm just not sold on it. I think they lost a guy or two from that quarterback room in free agency this year willingly. So it's one of these deals where it's like, I really believe that you need a guy who can make a difference for you. And this is a guy, from day one in college, he was starting. Last year didn't really get to because he got hurt. But I think this is the team that takes the chance on Jermod McCoy. I think the Bills would be willing to take the opportunity here to select him 26th overall, to let him be the guy. Absolutely baller when he was able to play in both 2023 and 2024. Started his career at Oregon State before he ended up transferring to Tennessee last year. And in the 1 year he was in the SEC, he played really well. 4 interceptions, led the team in pass breakups, was a second-team All-American, and made the All-SEC team, or one of the 2 All-SEC teams as well. High potential to really be just like a disruptive player in terms of like not letting wide receivers get to the ball. He's able to quickly get to wide receivers, can force those pass breakups, and he's really great. I think he's the potential for man-to-man. Maybe you're a little bit worried about it because of the injury last year. I still think it could be fun, but I think zone coverage is where he's going to do best. And honestly, because the Bills don't really have a lockdown corner in this secondary right now, I could see them maybe making it a zone heavy focus on the defense, and I think he fits right in like a glove. I think he's the kind of guy that would absolutely be an asset to this team. He missed all last season. This is not an injury that he had, like it was like late 2024, early 2025 when he suffered it. So he was practicing with the team even before last season started. They just chose not to play him. So he's had a full year with a top college school, right? An SEC school to rehab. He's now going to go into the NFL with a top medical team to rehab. I think he'll probably be ready for day one, but even if he maybe misses the first week or two, I think he'll come in and make a pretty instant impact for the Bills right away. So give me Jermon McCoy to Buffalo at 26 overall. Good thing we didn't let him slip to San Fran, because with the whole facility near their practice where electric waves are having guys get hurt. Thankfully, Aaron Rodgers never went out there, saving Jermon McCoy an extra trip or two to the hospital during his rookie contract here. But no, the San Francisco 49ers will now pick with the 27th overall selection, and the Podfather, back to you, our good friend, is making this choice. So, Rick, what are we thinking for San Fran? Wild card team last year, beat the Eagles in round one. Kind of looking back, like such an injury-riddled season. Like, I think we were consensus on the pod. I think all of us picked San Fran over Philly in that postseason prediction episode, or at least
I believe we did. Yeah, I believe so.
So it's like we obviously saw something there, but they were going to get outmanned at some point, and they did by Seattle.
It wasn't that we saw something in San Francisco, even though we did. It was that we saw something that we didn't like in Philadelphia either. Philadelphia was a foe, a fugazi divisional champion, if you will. That didn't deserve to be there. San Francisco is interesting because, again, like you were saying, one of the things that they was shown that they were most exposed to by when it came to the divisional round was the fact that defense suspect at best. And there's a really good player here who is still on the board, who is redefining his position, because he's not a guy that you normally see at this height, at this weight, at this position. But Keldrick Falk has the potential to be an incredible player in the league, and somebody who can really make you rethink the way that the edge position is. At 6'6", 285, he's an incredible run defender, run stuffer, and the pass rush, he's got an opportunity to learn in that San Francisco mold. Now, again, they don't have Robert Saleh anymore as their coach, but Raheem Morris knows how to take guys and make them into stars on the pass rush game. So I think that Falk has the potential there to become an absolute beast on that front line for San Francisco. So I think he's a good fit here at 27 for them.
No, absolutely. And like he didn't he wasn't at everything at the draft combine officially, but like 35-inch vertical, 9'9" broad jump. You said three years started. It took a little bit in his freshman year, but ended up being like 2.5 full 3 seasons starting consistently for a lead SEC school, Auburn. And he's also like, this is the thing, he's extremely young, Rick. He doesn't turn 21 until like basically training camp and preseason. Like this is, is he the youngest player in the draft? I haven't seen that officially said, but
no, Monroe Freeling, I think, is like still 19, I think.
Okay, so one of the like 2-3 younger guys in this draft coming out. And to your point, like it says a lot about a guy who he's extremely young, but like the report says that he's a lot more polished for his age than people would think and give credit for at first. But no, I like that selection. I think that's a really great pick right there. And I think if you're San Fran, I think the defensive line especially has suffered so many injuries the last couple of years. Like I think you need that guy. This young kid is going to learn under the likes of a Nick Bosa. Like in terms of like perfecting his techniques and being even better. He's going to see a Fred Warner as the leader of the locker room on the defensive side of the ball, and he's going to learn from that guy. Like this is like top 3 best team that a young kid like this could be brought into, just in terms of like fit, culture, and the players around him he can learn from. So there's that. All right, the Houston Texans are here. And Rick, you brought up a guy earlier that you were considering picking before, and I'm not going to waste too much time. I'm not going to leave it for doubt. He was up for it before, and I'm going to pick him again here. Caleb Lomu out of Utah, Fanau's teammate for good reason. The two of them were fantastic in Utah last year, and he was another one of those guys that played extremely well. The Texans need, I mentioned with Fanau that versatility. I think the same is with Lomu. I think he could play, I think he might end up becoming more of a guard. I think there is still the chance that he could play tackle. And listen, right now, if you're the Houston Texans, you need a body. You need bodies along that offensive line. They've been trying to figure things out along that offensive line. They made a couple additions in this offseason, right? Like you have Wyatt Teller, you have Braden Smith. I think that right side is set. I think that Lomu's going to get a look if it were to fall this way. I think he would more get a look on the left side of the line. Probably ends up being the left guard more than anything, but you could try him out at left tackle for a couple games, see if he could do the job for you there. But no, I think this is. I was going to go like offensive tackle or offensive line here, excuse me, no matter what, because the Texans, they need to protect CJ Stroud. That is the name of the game. They need to protect CJ Stroud. They need to give him an opportunity. The fall off that he has had since his rookie season, like the line is getting worse by the year. Let's go back. Let's get better, Houston. Let's protect the quarterback here a little bit. So I'm going with him at 28 overall. All right, the 29th overall pick. And actually, I believe the last selection Justin is making in the first round of our mock. The 29th pick. The 29th pick to the Kansas City Chiefs, just to in the your pick selection here. Let's remind the people, Mansour Delane went at 9th overall to them. So now at 29, Justin has their pick here. So Justin, you went corner for Kansas City here. A lot of picks have been made. You talked about it before. You talked about wide receiver potentially being something they could look at. They could still look at the defensive side because, again, I mentioned the secondary, but they even had a couple, like one or two linebackers as well leave the team in the offseason as well. So just like those, like linebacker, maybe more front seven edge rushing caliber kind of guys. Like I think he wasn't an edge rusher more so, but like Chanel, I believe he left the team this past year. Like they bled talent defensively. So what are we thinking, Justin? We thinking we're going to stay on the defensive side for Kansas City, or are we going to go offensively for them?
Or Ty Simpson's still available. You never know.
I don't think he's thinking quarterback, to be honest.
Yeah, see? When you get down to this one left.
It's funny. I was 100% going to make that joke if you did not beat me to it.
I know.
But no, I am torn because there's two guys here that I think would fit really well. They really do need to revamp that secondary. They, like you said, they bled talent this year. The last time they won a championship because that defense was just, impeccable. As much as we want to talk about Mahomes and Kelsey and, all the plays that they make on offense. Excuse me, their defense was really strong. So I'm thinking about doubling up on cornerback, but that's not super exciting, I guess, really. And it would probably be a reach. The other guy I'm thinking about here is Denzel Boston out of Washington, who just, doesn't fit the prototypical Kansas City guy, but I've been saying for years, they need to get some size in that receiver room.
100%.
They love their small burners, but they need a guy who can go up and get it. They need a guy who can create separation and still be bigger than their guys. And it's just something they've lacked for so long. This Tyreek Hill, mold is really just not working out for them. It seems like it's shooting them in the foot every year. So with that being said, I guess I'll go with who I think they should take, not who I think they will take. And that is Denzel Boston out of Washington. 6'4", he's 209, he's 22 and a half years old. Like, he is the prototypical receiver that we've seen for 100 years in the NFL. I know it's only 50 years old. But it's something that they need. I don't know if it's their lack of ability to develop them. But like, let's just get outside the box from what we've been doing here. Every receiver stab that they've taken over the last 5 years since they got rid of Tyreek has not worked.
I'm 100% on your side. I agree with you, and I kind of would say the same thing. Where like you need a guy that when Patrick Mahomes is going to throw up the ball, that he actually has the best chance out of everyone on the field to really jump up and get it just from base height alone.
Get a big route runner like this kid. I mean, the thing is here also, like, people misunderstand that because Tyreek Hill had excellent hands and was so fast, they didn't realize that he is also a physical receiver and a extremely good route runner. Like, his route running is so underestimated because he has the ability to just burn people, but he is so much more than a burner, or was. I don't know if he still will be after this horrific leg injury that he had.
Right.
He was so much more than his route and his catch radius were just unbelievable, and his body control. He's not just a burner. So you need to find things other than that. These guys that they're bringing in, sure, they're NFL level talent. They're number one receivers in certain spots. Get yourself a guy who can do more than one thing.
Yeah. And honestly, though, to be fair, like, I think he will do more than one thing, but even if you like end up having like a specific role for him, like I think last season, I feel like we were maybe sort of seeing this in 2024, but I think it was more pronounced in 2025. Did it feel like to anyone else like the Chiefs were just like they weren't as lethal in the red zone last year as they were in previous years? And I don't know if part of it was because it felt like Travis Kelce was regressing last year and the rushing attack was just not the same. But it just felt okay. If the stats make me look like a liar, then okay, I am. But like at least to me, like eye test, it just felt like in the red zone, the Chiefs weren't as lethal and scary as they had been in years past. Like it felt like from 2021 to 2023, 24, if the Chiefs were in the red zone, they were gonna, like it felt like they were going to score more often than not. It felt like last year they just didn't have that same lethal ability, and that's what Boston can give you. 20 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons, one of the best guys to throw to in the red zone. Coupling that with the Kenneth Walker addition in the offseason for themselves, like this team could get back to being the most dangerous team, 15 yards in on the field just from that alone. So I'm a fan of your pick. I agree with it.
One of the big things too with Denzel Boston going into this draft, is that he was ranked very highly in ball security. I think that his drop rate last year was only 1.2%, which for a Chiefs team that a couple of years ago, remember they had 11 drops on opening night a couple of years back.
Yeah.
You want to get rid of those demons that are there. Get a guy who's going to catch the ball and actually catch the ball each time it's thrown to him. So I like that a lot too.
Yeah. All right. Podfather, you are making 2 of the last 3 picks here, but this is the first one. You have the Miami Dolphins here at 30th overall. So let's rewind. Casey Concepcion was your pick at 11th overall for them. So you gave Malik Willis a wide receiver now. Are we going to stick offensively? Are we going to add another tackle into the fold to help protect him? Or are we going to go defensively here for the Miami Dolphins, who once again, like it's only listing a couple of the need is everything on this team?
No, I think that for them, I think that this is where they're going to need to go fill another need. For me, that need is going to be at the corner in the secondary because, while they have a good number of pieces that are on this team, you can always add more depth in the secondary, especially in a division that has some pretty gamey wide receivers that are there. You need to add some more pieces that are there. The question is for me, who's it going to be? And I think that it's going to be a guy who, has stepped up in certain ways, but also is a guy who has some more room to grow. He's, going to be a 21-year-old rookie, and he's very good when it comes to differing coverages. He can do decently in press man. He's good on zone. He's good in the slot. That would be Brandon Cisse, the corner out of South Carolina. I have going 30.
And that's funny. That's who I was thinking about with my other pick.
Yeah, because I think that, if Colton Hood could be a good spot here too for him, but I think that the way that Cisse is, he's got a very good coordination as a playmaker, but he's very quick. And that's what Miami needs, is they need a little more quickness in the secondary. So I think that he's an excellent fit for that defense and somebody who will really kind of, even more so, challenge Concepcion in training camp. That's a guy who I think that'll be a fun matchup of 2 rookies there if that's what it falls down to. And that'll make both of them better. So that'll really help Miami out considerably there.
Okay, I like it. All right, New England Patriots here at 31st overall. And with this selection, I'm actually, I made reference to him earlier in the draft that if he's going to go somewhere, he needs to go somewhere specific that, he can make an impact right away. And I think he could make an impact right away on this team because they lost some of the depth along the defensive line that got some sack production for them last year. And I think this is, honestly, this is I think, the perfect situation.
Jerg, what are we doing here? Punter.
You know what? You're right. Come on, let's go right here.
Atticus Sappington, kicker, Oregon.
Do they not have kicker and punter as something I could sort on here?
Special
teams. There we go. I'm like, wait, what are we doing here? All right. I'm like, all right. Brett Thorson's overrated. Jack Stonehouse is first team all name in this league right now. Like, there's the selection right there. Jack Stonehouse out of Syracuse is going to be the guy to New England. Look, there's the undue pick there. I can make the gimmick work here if I want to do that. But no, let's actually do this. But in all seriousness, the guy that I am going to pick had a really good last year of his collegiate career, which is really saying a lot because he had a really long collegiate career. But again, I think this guy's going to play right away. He's going to make an impact right away. He had 12 and a half sacks in college football last year next to Ruben Bain. I think this is a guy that, again, I said that he is a little bit older coming in, but if you're going to play a chance to play him right away and the impact he can make, and I think this is a guy that Mike Vrabel will love. He can attack with finesse. He can attack with a little bit of power as well. He's going to really get after the quarterback, and he was very good at being able to read quarterbacks that were trying to do, some, bootleg stuff, like run around a little bit in the backfield, which are going to have to deal with a lot in the AFC. There's a lot of mobile quarterbacks in in the conference. So give me Akeem Mesidor going to the New England Patriots there at 31. I think, again, yes, an older player, so it's like you need the best out of him right away. Send him to a team that is going to play him right away, that is going to put him in a position right away. He feels like a Mike Vrabel guy at 31st overall. I think that's a pick that the Patriots would love. I think he could fit in right away, and I think he would do big things. And again, they lost a couple pass rushers in the offseason. He slides right in immediately.
Yeah.
All right, the final selection of our first round mock, final selection of this episode. We will continue with rounds 2 and 3 in the next episode. Podfather, what do we got here at 32nd overall?
So the Seahawks only have 4 picks in the draft. So, as the defending Super Bowl champions, you would think there'd be a little more luxury in what they'd like to do. But with only 4 picks, you have to kind of be a team that hits more so on all of those picks. I think that Mesidor would have been a really good selection here if he fell to them at 32. I'm not mad that he didn't. I think there is another good edge that's there that could be the guy that they could work towards. My problem is that he doesn't exactly fit Seattle's mold of, the type of player that it is. So I'm looking off of that line that's there. There's a guy who I think, plays a position that isn't necessarily a need, but he's a guy who has all the capability to become a star in this league and a star on this team. And he's going to be throwing a very crowded room if he does go to this team. But for me, I think it's the right call to make, because when you have a guy who has, won as many awards as he has in the course of his collegiate career and has been an absolute stud every single time that he's, been picked, you don't whiff on the guy. You don't let him get past you. And I think that in that case, that's where Seattle's going to go for Jacob Rodriguez, the linebacker out of Texas Tech here. They lost Boye Mafe, so edge is probably a good spot where they can go. Rodriguez is a little bit shorter, 6'1", 230, but in his last season, 128 tackles, 11 for loss. He won the Nagurski, Lombardi, Butkus, Bednarik, Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. Really good Senior Bowl showing. If he can be behind a good defensive line that's got, the strong D tackles like Leonard Williams there, I think that Seattle will be a really good fit for him. And I think that he'll play well. He embodies what that 12th man in Seattle really speaks towards. And I think that that's a really good combination, both PR-wise and football-wise for them.
Yeah. He joins a pretty good linebacking core that's already there. Like you said, a front seven, if he's going to be in the front four that has those guys, those demons that absolutely go. And you also have like Uchenna Nwosu, who they like blitzing as well. They like sending after a quarterback. There's a guy right there. Just park him in the middle of your defense and he can do big things for you. I like it. We've made I think 4 picks of that caliber here in that essence, where it's like me with the Titans pick with which pick was it? Was it my Cowboys pick, right? Like the second Cowboys pick. I picked a old buddy out of Georgia. Like it's not the sexiest selections. It's not the sexy position. It's not the biggest name, but it's the guy that makes the most sense for what the team needs. And I think, Justin, I'll throw it to you here. Like Rick is mentioning, when in the Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll years, it felt like Seattle was kind of like reaching for a ton of guys, right? Like they took a couple guys that maybe they were more early day 2 picks, but to Rick's point, they're so limited. They would be so limited in the draft. They have to pick them early. It almost feels like they could go back to the playbook here. And hey, if you only have 4 picks overall in the draft, you have to make this first round pick count. And I think picking Rodriguez makes a ton of sense. Would you have gone anywhere, Justin, here before we end things off? Would you have gone anywhere? Or is something different with Rick, compared to Rick, or do you think he made the right call here?
I don't hate the pick. It's not like the running back was here to replace Kenneth Walker, which is going to be a major issue for them this year.
Yeah.
I agree. He could have gone edge, but I think a guy like Rodriguez kind of can fill lots of needs for you. He can drop into coverage a little bit as a linebacker. If you need him to get after the quarterback, linebackers can do that too. This is a kid that has that kind of motor. He is a winner. like Rick said, he's got a ton of collegiate awards throughout his entire career, and there's a reason for that. So I think it works. Really, I think it's a solid pick.
Well,
thank you.
I don't just trash your stuff, Rick.
I know.
Sometimes you make good picks, and I agree with them.
Well, listen, now that you're on this side of it, where you're the champion, I don't know what to expect. Time to it's nice. I appreciate that.
Justin's definitely been the cockiest of all the champions, and maybe the most condescending with his championship crown ever since the.
I was always like this. Let's not act like it was before. It was just because that ring went on my finger.
I was gonna say, just because of the ring.
Yeah.
Well, listen. Here's the thing, Justin. Here's the thing that you need to remember is that, like, you season after season after season, the first 3 years, like, you were the Buffalo Bills of this podcast, of making it to the finale, but just losing at the end, just like they did. And then you were just like, I want to say so many things, but I can't say it because they're just going to throw it back in my face. And now finally this year, you're just letting everything out. This has been 4 years in the making right here.
I would call it Justin After Dark, but since you're the one who has the foulest mouth out of all three of us, it actually kind of makes sense.
Well, it's not just that.
I haven't cursed all season.
Yes.
This is the first episode of this.
Hour 45 in
it's your first season, your first time on this season. Come on now.
This is like the McLaren fans joking, like, Oscar 100% podium rate so far. He's only done one race. Like that's not a standard deviation there, Justin. But no, what I was gonna say, you know what, Rick, tell me not as we approach one of the worst book WrestleManias of all time. Justin was the underdog babyface for 3 years, and then this year, this was his WrestleMania moment. And now this is the heel turn at, heading into SummerSlam. That's what Justin's going to be right now.
I was never a likable character. I just didn't win, so people didn't have the heart to tell me.
So now we're getting a "You People" promo? Is that what we're getting now? Ooh, I like it. I'm a fan of it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, as the Justin heel turn continues here on slowly into season 4 or season 5, I should say, and we see the true promos being cut as we get deeper in the spring and the summer. That's going to wrap up this episode. This is the 2026 SAOC NFL Mock Draft Part 1, Round 1. 32 selections. Technically 31 because we kind of made the CPU make the first one. But 32 selections made in total. Many more to come in the next episode. But these are the first 32 names that come off the board here, boys. Before we sign off for the people, just obviously this is fresh for us, but is there... I say it multiple times, so I think the people know how I felt. But was there any player or pick that was made before you got a chance for a certain team that you wished a guy could have fallen just an extra pick or two to you guys? Is there anyone on the board that jumped out as wow, I wish that guy would have stayed there a little bit longer?
No. I feel like in our cases, all of us have secondary and tertiary options we can pivot towards. If our guy is gone, we can still find a way to make it work, around moving him around to another team. So for me, it wasn't like that. There was not a guy that I think, like I said, the only guy that I think I would have wanted in the fall was Mesidor, but like I said, it was one pick to Jacob Rodriguez. So not for me, no harm done.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of my guys fell to my teams, and sure, maybe I would have liked them for other teams later. But I think it's probably going to be more of a problem later in the draft than it is earlier in the draft, because as much as you want some of those top guys to fall, you know that they're not going to fall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
100%. I was just curious. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that was as the nighttime alarms go off, so it's time. The phone is telling me that it's time to go soon. That was the first round of our mock this year. So, of course, this is the first time since we've been doing the 3-round mock drafts here on the show that we're splitting it. So, round 1 was today. Rounds 2 and 3 will be joined together in a single episode. Then they'll come out. I'm not going to promise in the next couple of days. You people get 2 with
eventually.
Here soon before the draft. Let's promise.
You people. Demanding so much of us.
So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for joining us on this amazing round 1 edition of It All Begins Again. Yes, you're correct, Rick. The draft, even with free agency happening before, the draft is really the ultimate time of year where the hope gets renewed for 31 teams. and one spare team at the end. I'll let you fill in what despair team that you think it could be. Just a hunch. But that being said, this was a fantastic round 1 of the mock boys, and I can't wait for rounds 2 and 3 where we'll get to continue and we'll be able to make more of the selections that we were talking about. How I think this team could go for this pick later. I've definitely made that point in a couple of my selections, right? Like with the Cincinnati Bengals pick that I made not the Titans pick. It was another one of those early picks where I was thinking of another position, but it could be hit on later on. So it's going to be a fun one. Before we leave, Podfather, I'm asking this on the spot, and if you disappoint the people, you disappoint the people. Do we have a rand podium, the first rand podium of this season? Justin, you haven't missed a rand podium yet this season.
That's good to know you were saving them for me. Thank you.
Yes, Rick has been saving one for you. Now, is it this week or next week is the question. So, Podfather, do we have a end of the week, or maybe technically start of the week for some people, Sunday night rand podium special?
No.
Oh, of course.
I'm truthfully, honestly, I'm actually feeling pretty good. I'm in a good spot right now. So, I don't think we have to do anything too crazy at the moment. So, that might change come next week, but we'll leave that for next week.
I'd say the people need you more miserable for more rants, clearly.
Jared, you and I will start sending him things that'll frustrate him.
Oh, yes. I can't wait. It'll be a lot of fun.
Dunkin' Donuts voted best coffee in America.
Now that's just a blatant lie. We all know this for a fact.
You think if I just start sending like a daily picture of like the Dunkin' Donuts that like I walk past when I have to go grocery shopping, Justin, you think if I just send that picture every single day, it'll eventually snap and we'll get our first rant podium?
I think it'll just be you on the rant podium.
It might very well be.
I was gonna say, honestly, we need to give Rick credit. 174 episodes, however many rant podiums, and I don't think either of us have been on the rant podium yet.
There is time, as we say. There is time. We have all the time in the world. We have all the time in the world, boys.
Indeed we do. Well, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on this week's edition of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. That's a decent little bit of chaos. I think each of us made like a little bit of a stretch pick, quote unquote, for our first round picks, but that's the fun of it. It'd be so boring if we did like the expected guys every single time. Let me pick a guy that's projected to go 22 and pick him in the top 12, top 13. That's where the fun comes in. That's where true mock drafts are made, ladies and gentlemen. So to all you beautiful people who joined us on this week's edition, again, first part of our mock draft this year, as the Podfather just no longer graces us with his presence. I guess we're not good enough for him, Justin. So as as the Podfather just bids us adieu, either this was his laptop dying or his internet being spotty. Justin, we're one step closer to a rant podium next week. On that note, thank you for joining us on this week's edition of Fun, Football, and Chaos. From the opening seconds to the very end here, we bid you all adieu. Thank you. Bye-bye. And we'll see all of you next time.